Jim C. Clown, welcome back to top 10 quiz tips. All right, so I wanted to kind of talk about some real quick tips on quizzes. So in the last video, we did talk about one thing where, if you go off and you're creating a question in a quiz bank, you can go off here. So for example, I can go off to, my quizzes in my class, and I can go and create a quiz bank. So let me just show you real quick, if it'll be fast to do that. Come on, there we go. Okay, so instead of clicking on the quizzes, you click on Manage Quiz Banks, come into Quiz Banks, and you can add a question bank. So you can create your own question bank, new bank of questions. And now, if I just hit enter, I've just created this new bank of questions. So now in here, I can actually create questions. And this lets me save those questions for any time. All right, I can add a question, and like I said, always give these questions a label, like tips. Let's call it quiz tips number 1. Quiz tips number 1, it's going to be multiple choice. Was this fun? Question mark. I scroll down. I can say yes. I can say no. And then if it's only 2 things in your multiple choice, don't forget to actually turn to delete these other questions, because usually it comes up with 4, and so delete those. And so now you've only got 2, right? And like I said before, I always go and try and put an explanation of why that answer is right, and either I'll copy it into this green one and the red one, which makes it so that if they get it right or if they get it wrong, they still get an explanation of that question. Then I update the question. So now I've got that in that quiz bank. But here's the other thing, right? If you forget and you're like in a quiz, you've just created a quiz and you're doing something, or maybe you've actually imported some quizzes from somewhere else, or you've gone out to Commons and you found some interesting, other class that somebody else did, and you bring stuff in and they've got a bunch of questions, and you're like, oh, I want to save these questions for my quiz, and I want to put them in my quiz bank. You can actually do that. And what you do is you go back to quizzes, and here we go. Come on. As we're waiting. All right. So we're back to quizzes, and we go to quiz banks, manage quiz banks, and then you may have a bunch of quiz banks, right? But one of these quiz bank settings, or a couple of them maybe, are going to be unfiled questions, right? These are questions that, and these probably came in from 5 different classes that I merged into one. So these are all the unfiled questions from different classes. But here they are. They're all right here. And so these are questions that got created outside of a quiz bank, but they still exist someplace, right? And they still are part of some quizzes that are in my class. I can go to that unfiled thing, right? It's like, oh, these are ones on, these are ones I named, right? So it's like, oh, okay, these are for, my Python chapter 1 and chapter 3 sections, right? But then I have a whole bunch of questions that don't have a title to it, right? So it's like, I don't even know what this is, because you can't, you see the question, but you can't really get a context of what it was for or where it was, right? And so that's what I recommend, is you always, when you create the question, always give it a title. But now I can take this question, right? So, I have a thing in the beginning of class where I have them, introduce themselves, talk about stuff with each other, little small groups, and they talk about their superpower, right? And then later I actually have them think about like how to defeat their superpower with technology, right? Well, so this is like not in a quiz bank, but I can actually take this and I can copy this to another bank. And so now I can go look at all my other banks that I have, and let's go find my. It's interesting. Oh, okay. What's interesting is that you can see all the banks that you've ever created in any class across the universe, but um, but you can't necessarily see ones that were created in a different class. But let's see. So I can't see my one that I just created. But in any case, let's go stick it into. Oh, here we go. New bank of questions. Right. So I'm going to move it there. Right. And I can either keep a copy of it where it was, or I can actually make it go away from where it was and only exist in my new bank of questions. So now I move a copy of that. And now if I go back, I can actually see that question is now in my bank, my new bank. Okay, so let's go back. Come on. Right, I go to quiz, manage quiz banks, um, new bank of questions. There's two questions in there, right? There's, was this fun? That was the one we just created, but now there's also this other question, right? And so that's a quick way to build your questions, and that way you can have those questions and you can carry them from class to class, module to module, and they just are always there. And again, remember, my recommendation is that you create your free for teacher account and you create your whole class or chunks of your class as separate classes. You do that here, and then all your quiz banks are here. And so as you create and move things around and change things, you've still got all that material from year to year to year to year. And the nice thing about these is that you can go back and you can go fix. If you find an error in one of your quizzes, instead of just fixing it in the quiz, go back to your quiz bank, fix it there. So the next time you actually use something out of the quiz bank, your question is right. Because if you fix it in the quiz that uses it, it doesn't actually fix it in the quiz bank. The quiz bank is kind of this repository, and you're making a copy to a new quiz. And so now this is a new entity. If you make edits to it, it only changes it here, and it doesn't change it on your quiz bank. Anyway, come at me, talk to me more about quiz banks. That I think that's a really good opportunity to do stuff, is build quiz banks. All right.